You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
What is up, good people? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. This week, I have my very good friend and partner, Mr. Scott Marquart, back on the podcast. He was on, a couple months ago, and everybody loved it. I had so many messages talking about how he had such a good rapport and how it flowed so well, and they just really enjoyed his episode. We talked a lot about Les Pauls, and so I thought, you know what? Let's just have him back on for just a random gear conversation. We talk about a lot of the recent releases, really all kinds of stuff, and it shouldn't come as any shock to anybody who's listened to this show for a while that Scott and I really do have a good rapport, because we literally talk enough to fill multiple podcasts every single day. So yeah, we're kind of like two old married people at this point, maybe. I don't know. I can rather confidently say the only person I talk to more than him would be my wife, Lynn. Yeah. Anyway, this is a great conversation. I think you're going to really enjoy us making fun of each other and having some good banter back and forth, and a bunch of gear stuff as well. I've got some more straight up interviews coming your way very soon. I've got actually a really stacked month. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to get these recorded. But without further ado, I think you're going to enjoy this fresh conversation with Mr. Scott Marquart of Stringjoy. Let's get into it right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Wyland, and with me today, I have returning my dear friend, Mr. Scott Marquart. How is it going?
It's going pretty well. I know that when everyone watches or hears this, it'll be a little bit after Halloween, but I want to clarify for those of you watching on video
that he's actually a cowboy now, and
Halloween day.
He's changing careers altogether.
I am dressed as a cowboy here. Sadly, I don't think anyone else at the office, at least on first shift, dressed up. But I feel that there's some level of requirement for the owner to wear a silly costume, because it can seem so serious all the time. So it's kind of nice to lighten the mood a little bit.
Well, you came on screen and I wasn't expecting it. And I uttered some words that I'm not going to utter on this podcast, but they were positive. So
I appreciate those words and these as well. Yeah. I just kind of threw together like the assorted Western wear that I had lying around the house.
Well, and that made me realize something when you told me that, which was that I don't have assorted Western wear, despite being probably the person in the company who listens to country music almost the most, I would guess.
You definitely are that.
Yeah.
You need to get some. I mean, granted, it's lying around Nashville more easily. I should confess, and this, I'm curious your thoughts. So this hat, I actually bought this hat. This is my actual Halloween costume is Eli Cash from Royal Tenenbaums, Owen Wilson's character.
Oh, thank you. And that's also great.
This is like the exact hat that he had. It's like, it was FDR's ranch hat. It's like a Stetson. And I will admit that I indeed bought this hat new from Stetson. And I'm curious what your thoughts on this are, because you're a hat man, but a different kind of hat man. There's a thing where it's like, I can wear a hat like this and be like divorced from meaning. I think I look pretty good in the hat.
Right.
But I don't want to be like the guy that wears the hat around town. That
Sure.
feels like that has like a whole different connotation from just the hat. Like if it was the 1940s, I think I could pull off the hat. But I don't know that I'm like a hat guy.
Right. I am a hat guy, but mostly trucker hats, which has
Right.
less of
Different thing.
It has less of a, you can not wear one and people aren't like, where's your hat? You know?
Right.
It's,
And like if I were like Jack White, like if I were like a a preeminent rock star, I think I could get away with the hat.
yeah.
But as just like a guy, I
It's
don't
also
know.
different in Nashville because there's so many hat people. It's less odd to be the hat person.
There are a lot of hat people, but definitely like a thing that occurs in Nashville that I'm sure also occurs in like LA and other kind of performance focused cities is that you'll see guys who, on stage look super normal, walking around with like a lot of beads and kerchiefs and furs and like a leather
Scarves.
jacket and like
Yeah.
like snakeskin boots and tight pants and like the whole a bunch of biker rings and stuff. And like this feels normal. If I go to see a band, I'm like, sure, especially if it's like an older band, that's the guy that's on stage playing guitar. This feels normal. But out of context, like when you see this guy at the grocery store like stocking up on way too much Wonder Bread, it definitely like the mind reels in a way that it doesn't at a concert venue.
You know why I think that is? I think I want to get back to the hat thing here shortly, but
Okay.
I think that's because we're so accustomed to seeing that guy on the stage in that context doing that thing that to see them in any other context doing normal person stuff, it's weird. It's kind of like when you see that famous picture of Glenn Danzig like carrying cat food. It doesn't make any sense. Of course the man carries cat food. Like, of course, he's a normal human being. Of course, he does normal human stuff.
But
I'm
don't
used to
see Glenn Danzig looking like he's playing in the Misfits, like at the grocery store.
No, but kind of like he's halfway there. You know? Yeah.
I feel like what it is like you need me to know that you're at the grocery store, but sometimes you're on a stage somewhere.
I think that's it.
Playing an instrument. And it's important for you that I know that happens sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is a lot of it. And a lot of it is it just becomes part of who you are,
That's also true. I mean, why buy a whole different set of clothing?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And that goes kind of back to the hat thing. So I think I've told you this before, and I've talked about it on the podcast briefly, but all through high school, I wore a cowboy hat.
I did not know this. This is brand new.
Is it? I thought we talked about this. Yeah,
all through high school?
All through high school, I wore a cowboy hat. So I had the strangest attire of like normal early 2000s teenager clothes with a cowboy hat. I wore it all through high school. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I feel like what you're describing, like I've only seen really accomplished in Pantera, where it's like dressing like I'm mostly like kind of metal, but there's also like I'll wear a cowboy hat too.
Yeah,
at least
that was,
like Vinny.
That was sort of the vibe, except I did have it was more the color of the light tan color that you kind of have on now, but it was more classic cowboy hat, with the shape of it.
That's crazy. I have now like not this, even in addition to this, I have a cowboy hat that was made. I went with a buddy of mine hosts like the big IndyCar racing podcast with guys who I've met, but whose names I forget because I'm not as into IndyCar. But like big top race car drivers. Maybe like 3 guys that are listening to this overlap with that one. It's on like Sirius XM. But I went with him when they had the IndyCar race here in town to like the Andretti Motorsports party, which was wild. Big and Rich played for like 50 people. It was wild. There was a whole like bit. It was like 50 people that were like annuity salespeople, like finance people.
Okay.
But Big and Rich like still did the thing that they do, which makes total sense at their concerts, where they're like before they play one, they're like, let's who's our active duty service members that are here? Let's like give them all a big round of applause, and everyone's like looking around, and it's a lot of like guys in suits, and like nobody stood up, and they're like, who's been in the military? And there's like one guy, and everyone like clapped. So it was kind of odd where you're like, at this crowd, there's going to be fewer, certainly
Right.
like active duty service members than you would typically encounter at a Big and Rich show.
Sure.
But it was nice anyway. But anyway, I digress. They had like these activations. I don't know if you've ever been to events like this where it's like brands just giving away free stuff because they think that maybe you matter. I don't matter, but maybe some people there mattered. So they were doing like these custom cowboy hats, and you got to like pick your color and your size, and they'd steam it the right way, and like they branded my initials into it, and I got a little guitar pick on the side. It's super cool. It lives on top of a lamp at home because, see above, I don't feel that I can wear a cowboy hat as in like a serious way. in my regular life.
This makes sense. Well, I'll tell you why I stopped wearing the hat. And it wasn't because I didn't want to be the hat guy. It was simply because it becomes rather inconvenient. It's a big thing. And sometimes you you don't want to be wearing it for like maybe you're sitting at the table and you want to take it off and you're like, where do I put this enormous thing? It's large. It takes up space and you want to take care of it. You don't want to just throw it on the ground. And so you're like, okay, I guess I'll find a lamp or something to put it on, and then it's over there. And then
mine's on a lamp too.
You're trying to like look in like under stuff, and your hat's falling off, and like it becomes like extremely inconvenient, especially if you're a person that like does stuff.
Yeah, if you're a big tough guy until you encounter a gentle wind.
Yeah, that's right.
and then suddenly it's
yeah. So I think that. And as you know, my appearance is mostly based off of A, things that I'm into, but B, convenience. I cut my hair short for that very reason. I don't want to deal with it. And the hat is extremely inconvenient. So
these are the perks of being a professional podcaster.
That's right. Until this blasted YouTube thing started happening, and
that's true.
Ruined the whole thing.
There was a level, I was going to mention this to you. In the old days when I was on the podcast, like before, when there's not a camera, there's like a certain sense of which you feel like you can like let it all out a little bit more. The camera like makes you feel like you kind of have to behave a little bit more.
I certainly like have to be aware of it and not just like, I'm going to reveal a little bit too much. Like, hey, when there was no camera, I'd like be scratching my face and just like,
I bet.
Just digging in and like, mute it.
I can't imagine what you were wearing then.
Oh, all the time I was just in my gym clothes all the time.
Sure.
Yeah. Just because like, why not? Why not? No one can see me. But here we are.
Now you've got the team of makeup artists and, all that has to
exactly.
take place.
Exactly. I'm thinking about replacing myself with CGI. That'd just be easier.
That's a good idea. Yeah, they can do that now. They could you could train a model based on Blake Wyland's voice and do it. Have you ever? So it saddens me. I'm not like famous enough. I'm not famous at all, but I'm not like known enough to like ask ChatGPT to do something in my voice. I've tried. It can't quite pick that up. Like write something in my voice. It does definitely like know what Stringjoy is though. So like if I like ask like a Stringjoy related prompt, it will like lean into kind of our brand voice a little bit, which is neat and weird. But I wish, like some like, much more famous like podcasters or people like that can be like, say this in the voice of blank and it'll like kind of do it.
I have not tried this yet. I did ask ChatGPT. This was probably a year ago, so it wasn't very smart. Like who Blake Wyland was, and it got it 60% right.
Yeah,
it was like, oh, he's the host of the Tone Mob podcast, and he owns a guitar pedal company. I was like, I do not own a guitar pedal company. It was close, but yeah, and it had some details that were accurate and some that weren't. But Brian Wampler, my illustrious co-host on Chasing Tone, has asked. I can't remember if it was ChatGPT or what it was. He asked some AI to say an intro in his voice, and it's hilarious because it sounds like him on like cocaine and being like a morning radio DJ. It's like, "Hi, I'm Brian Wampler." It's like, it doesn't sound quite right.
It's an aspirational voice. So it's the voice that Brian should have, really.
Except it's like all nasal. Like, I know he has like a somewhat nasal voice, but this is like, it's like the guy it's like the ChatGPT version doesn't have a mouth and it's just all coming out of his nose somehow. It's very weird. Very weird.
Well, no segue at all. But I'm not the host of the Tone Mob podcast or anything, but, do you want to talk anything about gear? I know.
Well, so
I've probably done a lot of it, but there's a lot of cool stuff coming out all at once.
This is a pretty good segue actually. And it's a good opportunity to, I would have you on all the time. We probably should just do our own show since we essentially record a podcast every single day, at least during the work week. Some of which probably shouldn't be recorded though, so maybe that's for the best. But every time you come on, it never fails. I get messages of like, wow, you and Scott really do have just like a great rapport. Like I really enjoy when he comes on because you guys have like great chemistry. And I was just like, you know what? my guest had to reschedule. I got an open slot. Let's do
Here
it.
I am.
Yeah, let's do it. Like
You call,
I feel like you kind of have just
I
an
show up.
open invitation every time I have somebody drop out. You know,
I
Just like-
appreciate that. It's a tremendous honor to be your perpetual second option. Thank you so much.
my perpetual. But see, no one else is.
That's fair.
You know,
That's fair.
no one else could fill those boots. No one could do it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
on the gear side, what's got you excited?
Yeah, there's so much stuff coming out. It felt like there was like a little bit of like a trough there for a while, and then there's just like a bunch of stuff. Some of which you probably talked about already. I would love to get my hands on one of the new Jack White Telecasters.
Oh man, they look cool.
Those seem super cool. I don't know that I want to. I'm not gonna. Well, briefly, what signature guitars, if any, do you own? Outside of Les Paul.
I was going to say technically Les Paul's, but I feel like that's kind of went, over that hump. I don't own any signature guitars. I've been very, very close to buying the Music Man Dustin Kensrue a couple times, but I have not done that yet. And honestly, I'm a huge Thrice fan. Everybody knows that. And that's what drew me in. But also, I'm like, look at that thing. It looks really good. It looks really, really good. So it can't just be a signature and have like, I don't think I'm a big enough fan of anybody just to buy their signature I have to also really like the guitar. Same.
Like I would never. Signature guitars are like neat to exist, but not a thing that I would like generally choose. I do. Well, brief aside before I get into the one that I do actually like.
Yes.
It is kind of funny. It strikes me that there's like a / signature Les Paul, because you're taking like a signature and then it's somebody else's signature.
Yep.
Like I would love for there to be like the Machine Gun Kelly signature Eric Johnson Strat.
Right.
One day.
Yes.
We use that platform, and then now it's, there's a razor blade on it, but it's basically an Eric Johnson Strat that is now a signature Machine Gun Kelly Eric Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the one that I had, and similarly, like, so I was in Portland with you, as I recall, and we were at Hank's Music Exchange, and he had this Troy Van Leeuwen. I actually don't know how to say his last name. I assume it's Leeuwen.
I think that's right.
Jazzmaster, and I played it and absolutely just loved it. I later figured out it was the neck radius, that it has like that vintage style neck radius. My like Jazzmaster that's somewhere back there does not, and I just absolutely loved it. And I didn't buy that one because I was in Portland and had to get back to Nashville, but I bought a different one, like the Oxblood one, and that's at home, and that's a super cool, Jazzmaster of just a couple little tweaks. Like that neck radius is what sold me. The pickups sound great. It's got like a metal switch instead of a little, I don't know what you call that kind of switch, the Game Boy on off switch.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So that one's really, really cool. But outside of that, yeah, not a big signature guitar guy. But the Jack White one seems super cool. I shared with you a screen grab of somebody that was talking about how those are made in the factory in the US, and explaining like why it's so difficult. And they were, basically explaining that like out of the 20 people that do wiring at Fender, I don't know if it's the custom shop or the USA or whatever, but only 3 of them were qualified to wire up the Jack White Telecaster, and that's why they're taking so long. They can only make so many because only 3 of them can do the wiring that's involved. Now, as some of you out there might know, Blake and I are partners in Gun Street Wiring Shop. I am not the expert at all in wiring. In fact, like I would be definitely like those 17 out of 20 people that are not qualified to wire that up. But how much really goes in? There's like, it's a 3 pickup guitar. I assume there's like some out of phase switching or something, and there's a kill switch. Is there anything else that I'm missing on that one?
So now I guess we should say this. Assuming that forum post is true, right? There's a...
What are you talking about, Blake? Everything general users say on the internet about companies and brands is 100% true.
Oh, that's bad for us.
Such as the long-running conspiracy that we secretly are in California. yeah, anyway.
I just want to say, really, I'm honored that you make the effort to ship the whole factory to Nashville every time I come there to keep the ruse
it's a
up.
big production.
Yeah.
But, we just got to get back to that low cost rent, taxation, and labor of California. That's the only place the business makes sense.
That's right.
We could never afford to do business in Tennessee.
That's right. Yeah. How could you? But that really surprised me. That forum post. Now, again, we're assuming it's true. Maybe it's not. But the fact that, there's some funny stuff going on with those, but it's not that crazy. It's not any crazier than some of the stuff I've seen people ask Sean for. It's not even really crazier than the Jimmy Page style Les Paul wiring.
No, I think it's got to be way easier than that because it's a routed body. I'm sure it fits a lot easier than the Jimmy Page.
Well,
style.
They could design the guitar for it. They could make the route whatever it needs to be.
Yeah, it's very odd. Again, it's probably not totally true. If it were, my general assumption is that most of the people in that department are just we have the template and we just do point to point this, and when you throw some more at it, it just gets totally hairy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and to be fair, not to just toot his horn while he's not here, but Sean's probably one of the best on the planet at this stuff. He's been doing that specifically for so long. So I'm sure that tickled his funny bone a little bit to see, but that'd be me reading about only 4 people can blither nonsense on the internet. And I'm like, well, I've been doing that for years.
I've been doing that for years now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it surprised me too. I don't know, but I can imagine. In a production environment, that can happen. You always have people at different levels of experience. It's not that every single person in every single department is, a master or has been doing it for years and years and years. Some of those people are just spitting out those tele control plates all day long,
and that's all they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations and 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services, and it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because Let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff.
So that's cool. I actually saw I watched the rig rundown with Jack White. Well, not with Jack White, with Jack White's guy, showing all of his stuff, and it was pretty cool to see.
Did you see the guitar explode?
No, I skimmed it, so I guess I missed the good part.
Oh yeah,
the guitar explodes.
I didn't.
It was an hour 15 in my defense.
I actually don't know if it was in the. You watched more of the real rig rundown than I did. I just watched the clips that they put on Instagram and stuff. And John Bollinger picks up one of the guitars, and they're like, "Yeah, give it a go." And he's like playing it through an octave pedal, and he hits this big chord, and he grabs the Bigsby, and he just gives it a normal, totally normal dive bomb, like not even a Eddie Van Halen, like wow. He just kind of pushes it, and it just blows up. The bolt just like sheared off and just.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, "Oh no, I just broke Jack White's guitar."
No.
And then Jack happens to be walking by right after it happens. He's like, What? Why are you holding the Bigsby arm?" It's a great clip. It's on Premier Guitars like socials. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's amazing. That had to have been staged, but I don't know.
It didn't seem like it.
It was fun to see.
Yeah.
I love that man, like at this point, like, you know, not only like are the guitars all signature and the amp signature, but what he's done with his pedal board is super cool. Like a lot of those are, you know, things that he's had a hand in designing in collaboration with different builders. I saw that, I think it was Josh Scott rehoused
the Klon.
Jack White's Klon in like a black and yellow case. That's pretty crazy.
It's pretty awesome. Like,
yeah,
I thought the same thing that everybody thought. Oh, he's got a clone on there that's, you know, he's had done to his specs. No, that's legit Klon guts in a different enclosure, and it was cool to find out like that an industry buddy had a hand in that too. That's always
totally fun. Yeah. And I appreciate that he like sent it to, you know, to Josh to like do it in the like, you know, I could only imagine the like museum quality care that he took, but any yokel could have rehoused that, right? I mean, obviously you have to like powder it and you know, print it and whatnot, but like, take it out of the box.
It wouldn't have been, I mean, hold on. As far as I can tell from the clones I've looked at, it wouldn't have been that difficult to do, but there's something kind of rad about the whole thing. Like, you know, if any yokel was to do it, I feel like that would devalue that thing a little bit, even though it is Jack White's. But I think the fact that it's an industry person that people know, coupled with it being Jack White's, I'm like, that thing's probably the most expensive clone on the planet now. You know?
Yeah. I just want the guts from like the Warm Audio Centavo or whatever case copy they totally like used and repainted for that. Unless I guess I don't know. Unless he repainted his housing, but that surprised me. But
I don't think he wouldn't have bothered rehousing it then. Right?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Well, you probably would take the stuff out to repaint it.
Well, no, you could just do the outside if that's all you were going for.
That's true.
Yeah.
So somewhere, I guess, the remaining pieces have been assembled into a true Klon enclosure with like the guts of like a case accurate Klon clone. That'll be hitting reverb anytime.
Warm Audio Centavo, you say? Oh, there's one of those down there. Wonder what that's for.
I don't know if that one's actually like a 1-for-1 case clone. I know there are some that kind of are. It looks similar.
We'll hold it up for the video people. Just a second. It looks very close.
It does.
I mean, it's really light, and the Klons that I've held before were a little heavier, so maybe it's a slightly different kind of aluminum or something. But as far as how it looks, it's very close. Now, the original Klons didn't have that switch. So I guess it's not 100% 1-for-1. So for the audio people, there's a switch in the top of the Centavo that's a little mod they've done. The originals obviously didn't have that. So that part at least is not it. But it looks pretty spot on. And size-wise, it's about right. I'm guessing they did it. That's my assumption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, that's a commitment to standards of color that I super appreciate.
Absolutely.
other gear, and I mean, if you don't mind terribly, I would like to just bring up a couple different topics of like cool gear that I've seen.
Yes,
which
please.
in some cases is just me asking you for your opinions on stuff.
That
Because
works. I love giving my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not always. Every time I ever text Blake Wyland and I'm like, "Oh, did you see the new blank that launched?" You're like, "I've had it for 4 years. I've tested every version and variant." And I'm like, "Why don't you ever tell me?" You never tell me. You never tell me.
I was a part of the V1
out.
development team. What are you talking about? Yeah,
always. And I'm like, "What all are you keeping secret from me?"
I'll be honest. It's not that I'm trying to not tell you about things. It's that I forget. Because I have too much in my brain.
I want to test out one of the Chase Bliss clean pedals. That seems cool.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I just got the opportunity. I got one. Yeah, I got one.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure it's right behind you. What did you think of it?
It is, well, I wasn't sure what to make of it when it launched. I didn't have one at that time. And it showed up. And I have to say, it is exactly as advertised.
Yep.
Maybe not quite, because I love distortion and fuzz so much, but it does indeed make playing clean way more interesting. And it's not just because you can do like the make better or compression-y type things that we've seen done over the years. Like, I didn't know that I wanted a compressor that could like throb, you know. It almost is, and it's like it feels kind of like a tremolo, but it's not, because it's just compressing and releasing and compressing and releasing. I'm like, I didn't know I wanted that, but this makes this really interesting. It makes
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, and you can do it in stereo, so you like hard pan it and like have these weird compression things going on. That, like, I didn't know I wanted this. The consumer's not always right, because I had no idea this was even a thing that I would wanted to be able to do. So it really might be. I need to spend more time with it, but it might be the compressor to rule them all. And I'm not just saying that because Chase Bliss sponsors this show. If I thought it was dumb, I would tell you. But it's kind of insane. Like, I'm shocked at how interesting it is.
Yep. They seem super cool. I'm excited to play with it. And to be honest, like, I've been playing more clean lately for a while. Like, I always notice when I'm playing at home that, like, when I pick up the guitar and it's not plugged in, I'm doing some stuff, and then, you know, I plug in and it's clean and I'm doing some stuff. And then the moment I like kick on some overdrive, I just want to play like a classic rock riff. Yeah. Whereas like before that, I felt like I was like doing some interesting, like cool sort of post-punk, you know, amelodic stuff. And then as soon as it starts clipping, I just can't help it. I just want to play the Rain and Blood riff or something every time, and then it just takes me over. And then next thing I know, you know, that's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Well, a listener in the Tone Mob Facebook group pointed out something interesting, because, you know, I share a lot of the comings and goings of, well, there's never any goings, but the gear that comes into the shred shed, I'm usually posting about most of it. And they pointed out when I got the clean, they were like, all of your gear you've gotten in like the last couple months is really weird for a guy who openly just like only plays dirty. And I was like, oh, he's right. This is the Les Paul recording, which was designed to be straight in, played clean.
Like, yeah, it's like a low Z or low impedance pickup system on that, right?
Yeah, but what a lot of people forget, because that's like the selling point, it has a switch that switches it to high. So,
cool.
Yeah, so it does both, which is even better. And then I got that Strat that I can't stop talking about or playing, which I never thought would happen with a Strat for me, ever. Like, I'm still shocked that this happened. And then the Chase Bliss Clean. Those are like the three big things that have come in and over the last like 3 or 4 months.
Watch out, Corey Wong. Blake Wyland's
I find myself pretending to be Corey Wong occasionally with the Strat and everything, and I'm like, well, now I get why he does that. This is a lot of fun.
It's pretty fun, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm terrible at it, but it is still fun. That's never stopped me. But yeah, but I also really enjoy taking things. This is like totally, if you look at most of the stuff I do outside of like the 8-string, I love taking things that are maybe more classic or a little more low output kind of vibe, and making them do high gain stuff. And I think that's kind of like my favorite thing to do. I mean, I even prefer low output humbuckers most of the time. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've like probably turned the corner on super high output pickups.
I feel like almost everybody I talk to. In fact, our mutual friend Jack DeVille and I were just having this conversation last time I was up there. He's like, "Yeah, I used to think I wanted, super distortions and everything, or invaders or something." And he's like, "No, I want the low output ones. It feels better."
Yeah, I've never totally understood the advantage. Obviously you can get pre-gain is easy to come by. But like when it's on your pickups, it's kind of difficult to roll off. Plus you have the magnetic field affecting the strings, which people don't give enough credence to. There is an effect of those strings being dragged over magnets. The stronger the magnets get, the more that's going to change the way that they play and create things like inharmonicity, because the string can't resonate perfectly because there's a magnet at one end of it that's slowing it down ever so slightly.
Right. And it's more, I used to think that was like nonsense when I was a kid, but you can actually feel it if the pickup's strong enough.
Yeah, especially if you move them like really close up to the strings itself. So yeah, that's interesting. I mean, on the topic of new stuff, as I'm just rolling through since it came up, a lot of new stuff on the JHS side. That new delay seems fairly cool. Is it like effectively a memory man? It looks like that.
They've got three different modes. They've got reverse, they've got like analog, and then digital. So what they were trying to do was make a very simple, no menu dive style delay that had a lot of options.
Yeah.
And I think they pulled it off. I have not actually played that one yet, but it looks cool, and I'm a sucker for the reverse delay. So
who doesn't? Who doesn't love that? And you're right. I mean, it's kind of interesting from where we've traveled in pedal land over the many years that we've kind of seen it too. A menuless 3-mode delay feels fresh
right
now, which is interesting. But I concur. I mean, something that's usable that you can kind of dial around, and I mean, they always do a good job with just the way things look. And feel intentional, and that's really cool. And then I saw that they're doing a limited colorway of the color box, which is
I was gonna say, speaking of things that look cool, I'm like, I love my color box. I use it all the time. I got the V2, which I think this is the V2, just in different.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I use it all the time. It's so useful. But man, I love the look of that one, and it's weird that I would even consider, like, I have one that is perfectly fine, but I really could use the exact same one in a different color for no reason, really.
Hey man, maybe you might want to ever record 2 mics.
Well,
at the same time.
That's possible. Yeah. I use it a lot for actually putting pedals on vocals, because it's an easy way to do it. I set it fairly clean and then just stab a mic in there and run a bunch of effects on vocals, because why not?
It's interesting, and I'm glad that that's a lot of guitarists seem to really like it, but I think it has a lot of like pro audio uses and users. What's always fascinated me is that, like, to the guitarist, a pedal that like warms things up but doesn't like cause your signal to repeat itself or like add a bunch of saturation or something extreme, like compression or something like that. Generally, people are like, I don't think it's doing anything.
Right.
Whereas in studio world, that just that little warming is what everyone's like, oh my God,
I need that.
It's like a little warmer and fatter now. Like, and that's why I've got this 1073 or what have you. What I used to do way back in the day, in high school, I was at one point, I used to play through, I played a lot of jazz and stuff. So I'd play through this big 15-inch speaker Ampeg bass amp. Nice. Just like a solid state bass amp. But what I would do is I had one of the old Electro Harmonix Blackfinger tube compressors, and I ran through that. I think I would have an end of chain, or a lot of times I wasn't even using pedals. I would just keep it on top of the amp, and that would give me that sort of like warmthy, vintagey tubey thing. I sold that thing at one point because I'm a fool. It was a deeply inconvenient pedal. Oh, I mean, like in college. Forever ago. Like, it had its own power supply, and it could not run, you couldn't adapt it to run on a daisy chain. It was noisy. It had a big footprint.
It's huge.
It would get hot. It was inconvenient, but those things were cool. I always wanted to play a tube zipper. I never did.
I haven't either. I remember getting into pedals and like going back and looking at all those EHX ones and being like, wow, I feel like even now, I know they're one of the biggest pedal companies in the world, so it sounds a little weird to say it, but I feel like we forget about EHX sometimes.
Yeah.
That new Pog looks insane.
Mm-hmm.
Insane. I don't need it, but I need it. It's one of those things.
I know what you mean.
And
EHX has gone in a different direction. Like those are some fun days where it was just like we're tubing everything. Everything's got a tube. It's got 2 tubes in there.
You get a tube. You get a tube.
Yeah. And it's like, I wanted to build like a pedal board that's nothing but those, like, and then feeding into a tube amp. And it's like, man, I'm playing through like 28 tubes on the way to your ears.
I am actually Analog Man.
Yes, that is how you would truly become him. Yeah. Those were super cool. I know that I'm sure they won't reissue them. I'm sure they were a pain in the butt to make and source the tubes for and all that sort of stuff.
Well, they actually have a tube factory.
So. Well, I know. Yeah, that should.
Well, actually, do they now? I'm not sure how that all worked out.
It's always been a little unclear. Like the to be honest, like the aspects of EHX once it gets into like, and then there's all the stuff in Soviet Russia. It seemed like the trail always went a little cold as to like what is over there and how does it work and how is it related to whatever is here in the U.S. and didn't the original Electro-Harmonics declare bankruptcy? Oh yeah, it did, and then this is now new sensor and that's a different thing. And then other stuff going on over there in Russia and it's still over there. Anyway, I'm not saying there's anything untoward about it. It's just like as the casual internet browser, it always feels like the trail goes a little bit cold before you get to like exactly what is in Russia or wherever.
And what is this Mike Matthews trying to make a magnetic field generator thing to power the world? Remember that here like 2 years ago?
No.
Yeah, I don't even remember what he was talking about, but he made a post and him and this other sciencey guy, I sound like such a hillbilly right now. This other sciencey filler, they were like gonna create free energy somehow using using the Earth's magnetism. I don't really know.
That old chestnut. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so close to having a perpetual motion device.
Are you?
I am just tomorrow or the next day.
That's
I'm
just one of those. It all out. That's just one of those things you sit on the table with the balls that go back and forth, right?
Yeah. In fact, we finally figured out the world's energy problem, and we've created nuclear fusion. And the inventor was an old gentleman in New York named Michael Matthews. He put his cigar out on a vacuum tube, in fact, and it created a fusion reaction. And next thing you know, everything's fixed.
Hey,
that'd be amazing.
That
Not
would
the
be
hero.
amazing.
He's the hero we deserve.
He is, yeah. I and need, ironically.
Yeah. Both of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't remember the ins and outs of it. I just remember the post, and I remember thinking, well, we'll see where this goes. And so far, we're still seeing where it goes. It looks like
nowhere yet. I'm still waiting on. I think actually he did announce something. The Zachary Vex's like light bulb. You remember that one NAMM where he had like this whole like Rube Goldberg style doodad that created tremolo?
Oh yeah, that was that was all that was for. He wasn't ever gonna like produce those. That's just what it was for.
Yeah, no one's gonna travel with like an 80 square foot.
It was candle powered.
Yeah, it was candle powered. That's right. Yeah.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Goodhertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. and some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossing, I'd invite you to head over to ChaseBlissAudio.com. I think you're going to like what you find.
Hey there, I am Johnny Christ from Avenged Sevenfold, and I've got a podcast called Drinks with Johnny you're going to want to check out. I sit down with a bunch of different people from all different walks of life, from professional wrestlers to actors, comedians, fighters, musicians, everything in between. I'm just looking to make some friends and have a good time doing it. So if that sounds like something you're into, go check out Drinks with Johnny, streaming everywhere now.
This is the story of Whitney Houston.
This is the story of Kurt Cobain.
Of George Michael, of Otis Redding, of Amy Winehouse, of Michael Hutchence, Bob Marley. This is the story of Prince.
It's a new podcast series
about how they died, why they died, and why we're still talking about them so long after.
It's like nothing you've ever heard before.
It's storytelling.
But it's more than that, because rock stars,
they tell us how we feel. They change our mood.
They change the clothes we wear, the people we hang out with,
the way we remember things.
It's them who give us those ludicrous moments, the ones where you're
jumping around, singing your heart out, feeling understood.
And it's those moments we'll help you remember, the ones you're thinking about right now.
That feeling.
That feeling.
It's coming soon from Crowd Network.
Just search for Death of a Rock Star on your podcast app.
And subscribe now.
No, I'm supposed to talk to him on the show early next year. So
have you had Mr. Vex on the show?
No,
before?
I haven't. I realize how dumb that is. It makes no sense. We're like online friends. We haven't we've met in person a few times, of course, but we're not super close. But we've definitely chatted. And then somebody was like, "Why hasn't Zach came on the podcast?" And I was
he should.
Well, that's a good question. So we're working on it. He's got to get some.
He's a bit of a Willy Wonka character to me. I grew up in the early days of the internet when the Zvex had a website and you could go on there and I think you could just listen. I don't think we've figured out streaming video on the internet yet or anything, but you could listen to the sequel and stuff like this. And I would in my computer time at school in 3rd and 4th grade, log onto the site all the time and be like, oh my gosh, I want a sequel or all this stuff. So I grew up with that. That was the first thing that I saw that I was in this era, there were some people modding, we made a tube screamer 10% better. And then you had this guy who created the fuzz probe where it's a theremin that you use with your foot. And I was like, this is a whole completely different level of this stuff to everyone else. And I met him, one NAMM, I met him a few times. I doubt he even remembers me. But what I recall, we were walking around, I think the Earthquaker party back then. And, as it was explained to me, he lives in this small town in I think Minnesota that is an unincorporated town, and he was getting these phone calls from people all the time that were just he was just having to solve sort of simple municipal problems and concerns, of that there was a pothole that had developed, or that the mail didn't come that day, or just these sorts of Andy Griffith style little things that were occurring. And what was basically inferred was that he's sort of the de facto mayor of this town.
That's
everyone
what
in the little town calls him with whatever ails them, and he gets it fixed, I guess. and I remember he was just walking the whole time. He was like, oh yeah, sure, yep, no, we'll work on that right straight away. So I'm so curious about this town. I hope that it's all candle powered and has I could only imagine.
Yeah, I'm really excited to actually sit down and have a real conversation with him. He is a weirdly core figure in my geared nerddom, I guess you would say, because I remember kind of the same things going on there and looking at their website. And I remember reading an article about him talking about they're selling these pedals and this is how the company started and this is how blah, blah, blah. And I remember just being fascinated that somebody could do that, not just with the devices they were making, but wait a minute, you can just start a company? That's a thing you can do? I was pretty young when I was reading that. And it was just kind of mind blowing to me that and there's people who want these crazy things just as badly as I do. there's enough of them that he can have like employees, and this is a whole thing. It just blew my mind. So meeting him at that same Earthquaker party was really special to me. I was like, I'm talking to Zachary Vex right now. This is crazy.
Yeah. He's like that guy that exists in like every field where it's like 30 years on, it's like, oh, we're doing this crazy stuff now. And then like you eventually realize like there was this one guy 30 years ago that was doing all this, and like, you know, no one quite was paying attention the way that they would now. And, you know, like this certainly exists in like audio. You have like Joe Meek or Les Paul himself, like just people that were doing crazy stuff long before it, you know, its heyday.
Well, and you think about it, like the probably like the best example of quote unquote crazy stuff in the pedal world right now is probably Chase Bliss. I think that would be where most people's brains go. Where did he come from? He worked at Zvex.
Totally.
So, I mean, it's not like he was doing all that stuff at the time, but I'm guaranteed the inspiration was there. So it's wild to see how these ripples come out. And like Keeley, same way. Keeley's responsible for like 3 or 4 different pedal companies, you know, without actually being responsible for them. They just happen to work at Keeley, and they're like, wait, maybe if we did our own thing. It's these things just have these effects, haha, no pun intended, that really ripple out way bigger than the small businesses where they actually start from. It's kind of insane.
And I mean, that's an old concept, you know, having like a master and an apprentice that eventually goes out and does their own thing, you know, like that was John D'Angelico and Jimmy DeQuisto. And then, you know, that happened in Europe for hundreds of years. You learn under somebody and then you do it. Not to, you know, change too hard, but other fun gear that exists.
Oh, all right.
At
I'm ready.
this current moment.
I'm ready.
And this is a little bit different than the other one, but I wanted to give it a little bit of time because I think it deserves it.
Okay.
What's about to happen with Dumble?
You know, I am hearing so many conflicting things. I'm not sure. So that big article came out.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to like throw anybody under the bus because a lot of this is like fourth hand through the grapevine type of, you know, information, if it's even information, are saying that article isn't really accurate, and that the owners of the Dumble brand and name are only planning on releasing enough product to keep the trademark alive, because you have to be using it in commerce to keep the trademark alive.
Yeah.
So, but like, it sounds like it's going to be very small, just enough to meet those legal requirements. That's what I'm told. Now, that could be nonsense.
Do they have a trademark? I'm going to look it up because you typically can't trademark a last name
or whatever it was. I can't remember.
Don't you worry. I'm going to find out.
Like I said, I'm reaching through many grapevines with this information. So a lot of it, take it with a pound of salt, because I don't really know, but that's just what I'm being told.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of them. Many owned by a Matthew R. Swanson. There's a dead one that was owned by Justin Harrison in the UK. This feels very Dumbly because it says apparati for use with guitars.
that does feel like a Dumble thing. Absolutely.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess I'm not sure. Matthew Swanson might just be like the attorney or something. I don't know. But all the active ones are those, and they're all, there's a couple different word marks. Online retail store services featuring electric guitar. Sorry, I probably should have done this prior to the podcast. Publication date November 14th, 2023.
I think I want to I do want to step back a little bit and explain, actually. I realize we glossed over this as if all the listeners have read the same thing that we have. There was an article published, I believe it was in guitar.com, I think. Don't quote me on that. One of the major online guitar magazine sources that was basically saying there's going to be new Dumbles coming to the market in some way, shape, or form. Obviously not built by Alexander, but there was supposed to be new, legit Dumble circuits coming out to buy. Then I was told that was hogwash, so I don't really know, but it's interesting nonetheless. It's weird how much like that one dude is just shrouded in mystery. It's a crazy thing.
Yeah. So what's going on is that Matthew Swanson, who the internet says is the owner of the Creation Lab recording studio in Turlock, California, is the current owner of the trademark. And like from what I'm seeing on a lot of these, it looks like most of these were registered in like 2022 is when the application was sent in. So, and I don't know that there was one prior to that. Yeah,
we're learning in real time here, folks.
Yeah. This is what I do. Oh no, this one was filed 2002, but has an updated status date. Weird. So maybe Mr. Swanson was more involved previously. I really don't know. I mean, all of the Howard Dumble stuff is so difficult to tell what the heck's going on. Yeah. So that guy, that name that I mentioned, has been at least in some form or fashion involved since 2002 because his name's on the old trademark registration.
Okay.
Seemingly.
Yeah, which was definitely when he was still
active.
active.
The one who sued the British pedal company over infringement for something.
Okay.
As I found a lawsuit from
that was the British one that was filed that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. I'm not sure all the context on all of that, but yeah. So he owns it. I mean, I don't know his relationship to Mr. Dumble. Dumble.com, the home of Dumble amplifiers, news and information. So you might be right. I mean, I think that, and this is just one guy's thoughts. It seems like from him, having filed that trademark infringement thing, seems like he's probably keenly aware of that. A lot of people would totally steal the Dumble word mark if they could.
Oh, 100%.
You see a lot of knockoffs that sort of lean to it. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was just trying to keep it alive in commerce. And so making something here or there to do so, to prevent people from doing that. But I don't know. It's an interesting fantasy. I mean, like, if you were to, the hump you have to get over, right, is let's just imagine you were relaunching Dumble amps.
Okay.
They were all made for somebody,
right?
Like made for one person. So now I don't think that's necessarily a problem because you got some cool lines. Like, I mean, this is basically like Music Man guitars, I guess, operates kind of similarly, where a lot of them are signatures. A lot of people would want the Carlos Santana Dumble or the John Mayer Dumble or Stevie Ray Vaughan Dumble, but you'd have to get those and then model them. And I don't know if he gooped those boards or what.
Supposedly in this article, and I'm wondering if there's like little grains of truth interwoven into it. I really don't. It's hard to know, but they are saying they have the original circuits that I think it's probably, if I had to speculate even further, if it is this gentleman who worked with Howard, he probably has access to a lot of that information. So he'd be able to replicate it relatively easily if he did indeed have the designs. So, it's interesting. It's wild.
Yeah, I don't know, Howard Alexander Dumble's HAD's process. I don't know if he would sketch this stuff out or just like, it kind of wouldn't surprise me if he would just like build it.
I know. That seems like what I can imagine.
And anything that exists, you have to figure somebody that owns a $100,000 amp or more, both doesn't want you to take it apart and break it. And also probably doesn't love the idea of you mass producing this amp and thus depreciating the value of the 6-figure item that they own.
Yeah, or even it's probably even less that those that could afford that level of amplifier. It's probably more along the lines of like, I don't want everybody to be able to have this one thing that I have. Like, I don't.
Also
I just
possibly
don't,
that.
I wouldn't really selfishly. I'd be like,
you got to think a person that owns $100,000 amplifier. The main thing they enjoy about that is that other people can't.
I'll be honest.
They have something that nobody else has.
In a very small way, I have not a $100,000 amplifier, but I have a Benson that is not made anymore and hasn't been made hardly at all. My Monarch's actually an EL84 model. And that hasn't been done in a very long time, and it has a different thing. And I'm not going to lie to you and say that I don't kind of like that Chris doesn't do that anymore. I like that he doesn't do the EL84 model, because there's like only a handful of them out there. So, kind of on that same line of thinking, rather selfishly, admittedly, I kind of like that I've got one of the only ones. I don't know.
It's a cool feeling, for sure. I mean, I will say, like, color me as one that would love to see Dumbles mass-produced. Like, I can recognize there's something cool about the mystique, but, like, at the end of the day, I would, like, love somebody to be like, we could take this circuit, we can build this thing, we can sell it for $2,000 or something, and everyone could have them. I think that would be awesome.
I also, like, on the other selfish side, like, I think for guitar players, that would be in mass, that would be super cool.
Yeah.
Like, it would definitely. Now I know, actually it wouldn't, would it? I was gonna say it would impact the value of those existing ones, but it wouldn't, because those were all built by him.
It impacted them a little bit, but not by a ton. Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd still be, the unobtainium. It might even make them more expensive. You could make an argument if they got really famous. To me, at the end of the day, like, we make tools for art. And the idea of, like, making a tool that is unique because it can make really cool art that other tools can't, and being like, but nobody can have it. Only this one guy that could afford it can have it. And there's all these people out there that maybe could make really cool guitar parts if they had this particular tool, but that can't. I think that is stupid. I don't like that. I think it should be more, available and accessible to people all over.
Well, and on that same line of thinking, if it's not like 50s Les Pauls or Strats went down in value because more Strats and Les Pauls were produced, right? That actually the opposite is true. A bunch of people who started out on Squires suddenly were aware that vintage Strats existed, and it actually might have the opposite effect. There's a ton of people who don't know what a Dumble is. I didn't know what a Dumble was when I first started getting into, like, the gear world. I heard that word on a forum and I was like, what's a Dumble? And did all this Googling to try to figure it out. But I'm with you. I think, the more people that can have access to those sounds, the better.
Yeah. Are you familiar, like, in the visual art world, there's, like, a somewhat analogous thing to this. Are you familiar with Vanta Black?
Yes. The blackest black. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell the story for those of you out there. So this color was developed that is the blackest black possible, to the point, and it's cool if you see one. If you, like, paint, a little piggy bank or something, you won't be able to see the contours of it because it doesn't reflect any light. It looks two-dimensional in the room. Like, it looks as though you, like, it's a hole that's just an abyss in the shape of whatever it is. They're super, super cool. And that two-dimensional shape kind of changes as you walk around it. But this guy, Anish Kapoor, was, like, granted exclusive rights to use it. So no other artist could use Vanta Black because it was, like, a trademarked thing. And again, could he make the best art with Vanta Black? I don't know. But he was the only one that was allowed to. And this cool guy or company named Stuart Semple that runs Culture Hustle made, like, their own version of it, and has been continually refining it over time. Now I think it's like Black 3.0. That will they'll sell it to anyone that isn't Anish Kapoor. It says, like, right on the website, and they're like, you can't have it, but everyone else is allowed to. And I bought some of it a couple years ago. And I'm not, like, an artist. I was just like, I want to paint some random object black, like, super black, so where it doesn't reflect anything. And it was cool. I painted a lamp because I thought that would be ironic, and it was pretty neat.
Nice.
But similarly, like, I'd rather stuff be in the hands of everybody,
Yeah. That reminds me of a related but not totally related thing. It's actually on the other side. It's on the art side. There was an artist. He took a Warhol drawing that he'd bought for, like, 20 grand or something, and it was just a line drawing. I can't remember which piece it actually was. And he did a perfect copy of them. He made like 200 of them, and then he destroyed all documentation
of which one was which.
Yeah. Shuffled them around in a big stack, so you had no idea which one was which. And he sold each of them for, like, a couple grand, and it was like he sold it as maybe a Warhol.
That's awesome.
So somebody out there has a Warhol drawing, but they don't know, and a lot of people have some that might be.
Oh my gosh, I would have, like, depending on what it costs and all that, like, I would have loved to get in on that gambit. That sounds fun. It's like Schrodinger's Warhol. Like, is it a real Warhol? I don't. It might be.
It definitely maybe is. Yeah.
It's as much of a real Warhol as any of the other 200 of them.
That's right, and nobody will ever know. And I kind of love that. I've as I've gotten older, I've appreciated not knowing certain things, and letting the mystery be part of the appeal. It's why I've never told this story about my record, because There was definitely a story there, but I like hearing everybody's guesses and what they've painted in their own brain. And I may or may not ever actually tell people what is going on there. So, yeah.
The minds of the world will reel in the meantime. I've seen all of the guesses. I remember there was that whole entire Joe Rogan episode. President Obama weighed in. Everyone was talking about
Everyone
what the
was
story
talking
was.
about it. There's been
no one will ever know.
There's been at least a dozen people weigh in on this, okay?
There are dozens of us. Yes.
Literal
I
dozens. Yes. But yeah, good times, man. Well, hey, we're approaching the end of the main episode. We got to slide over to Patreon here. And I've already asked you the classic questions a million times. Is there anything you'd like to leave these good people with?
Oh my goodness. It's about to be Thanksgiving. It's already the holiday season. It's been a weird year. It's like weird year number 4, I think, for
Number
everybody.
8, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just definitely like from COVID on, I don't feel like it's been normal yet. But I hope that everyone, can enjoy some time with family and loved ones and all that. And maybe that brings back some sense of normalcy for everybody. And we get a little bit better every year.
That's right. Well, I hope you all had a great Halloween. It's both Scott and I's like our favorite holiday, I know we're both big fans of Halloween, and I know this is a immediately post-Halloween episode, so the season of spooky is a little bit over, but this is one last little drop in the spooky bucket before we roll it up for the year and call it good. Let Michael Myers go back to sleep.
Because I look so spooky right now. Yeah. Don't you think I'm going to get this gussied up for you every time we record now?
I mean, yeah, you could be. You could be like that small town sheriff, saying, don't go down that road there now,
That sounds
kind of
alright.
have those vibes a little bit. So that's spooky
Appreciate that.
in and of itself. I can't talk. It must be a sign to hang this up. All right, everybody. For Scott, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, folks, there you have it. Another episode in the can. The Patreon on this one was a lot of fun. If you want to support the show and get more bonus content right to your ears, please head over to patreon.com/tonemob, where for just $5 a month, you can get extra episodes beamed directly to your ears, as well as access to the ad-free feed, if that is your thing. Thank you so much to everybody who listens. Thank you so much to Scott for taking time out of his extremely busy schedule to come on and blabber with me in a recorded fashion this time, and I'm sure he will be back on in the near future. Again, I've got a lot of interviews in the pipe. I'm excited for those. I'm so stoked for what is coming. I hope you enjoyed all the Tone Mobbery. Please give me a follow on Instagram. Go check out the YouTube channel where you can see the video versions of these interviews. And yeah, I think that's probably good for now. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you on the internet very, very soon. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Hi, I'm Daniela Clark.
I'm Barbara Ann Wild.
And we are the Honest AF Show.
Our podcast is real, honest conversation with our celebrity friends and pros.
Covering our anything but average rock and roll lifestyles.
All while tackling the hell that is aging and the battle of beauty.
Oh yeah, nothing is off the table.
The Honest AF Show is available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello out there. Hi, I'm Hal Schwartz.
And I'm Flynn McLean. We want to tell you about our podcast, None But the Brave, which is dedicated to taking a deep dive into the work of Bruce Springsteen.
We're currently in our 5th season. Our latest episodes focus heavily on Bruce's 2024 tour and have featured such guests as Anthony Castrovince from MLB Network and Barstool's Kirk Minahan.
We're also covering the 40th anniversary of Bruce's biggest record, Born in the USA. And as part of that, coming up this week, Uprock's cultural critic Stephen Hyden returns to the show for a fascinating hour-long conversation about his new book, There Was Nothing You Could Do, Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA and the End of the Heartland.
To listen, you can go to our website, mbtbpodcast.com, or subscribe on your preferred podcasting platform.
We hope to see you further on up the road.
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.